Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 21. I've got Allyn Emery. He's the Senior Vice President of Peshtigo National Bank here in Wisconsin, and he wants you to stop exerting your authority. Yes, that's right. Flexing your authoritarian muscles is the worst advice he's ever heard. Stay tuned. He's going to tell you why. We'll be right back. All right. So I am with Allyn Emery here at the Exchange. This is actually, funny enough, both of ours, only our second time here.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool place. They got something good going.
Yeah, good vibe. I like the rustic side of things. You know, it's got little bookcases. Good. I think some jazz. I'm not a big music guy, but I'm pretty sure it's jazz. So
you got it right.
It's a good vibe, man.
And not a small. Yeah. Not a little bookcase, but a big one. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd take that at my house anyway.
Yeah.
What are you sipping on? What are you drinking?
I think a hazelnut cappuccino. And sipping is a generous word. It's too hot for me. So right now I'm stirring it to kind of cool it off. So
yeah, that's awesome. I've got the Cortado con Pana.
Looks fancy. It's got a clear cup.
Yeah, double wall and everything, man. I'm usually a black coffee guy, but it's kind of fun drinking fruit drinks. And I always, I've said this before on previous episodes, but people are going to start thinking I'm just like a fruit guy because I say I'm a coffee guy, but I'm only drinking fruit drinks.
Yeah.
So I'm working against myself.
Well, there's no umbrella in it, so I think you're right.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, man. Well, this is good. I'm excited. Allyn and I, this is the first time we've ever met.
Yeah.
And we initially connected just on LinkedIn. And I think you reached out to me. We've got our roles overlap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But really exciting. I'm excited to get to know you, man, because I don't know you.
Yeah, likewise.
And that's something that probably helpful for our listeners to hear. This is what this is all about. It's just like, hey, let's grab coffee and let's get to know each other, right? This is unscripted, unprompted, and it's cool. We have an obvious idea of where we're going to go, some questions I want to ask.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to get to know you. So, with that said, who is Allyn? Tell us a bit about yourself, man. Where you come from, what you love to do.
Yeah. So first and foremost, husband, father of two, and really just, for the most part, grew up in Wisconsin.
2 dogs or kids?
Actually, yeah, 2 dogs and 2 kids.
Yeah.
Only one wife, though. So we're good to go.
Boy, girl?
Both, yeah. So I got a 12-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son.
Awesome. So cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. We can talk about failures all day on that. So, but yeah, just really moved here when I was 6, originally from Michigan, and saw Green Bay grow. Interestingly, quickly, but great community. It's been awesome to raise a family, to grow a career, and those types of things. So
yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, so you're up from the UP, you came down to Sheboygan.
Lower, yeah. Don't mistake. I'm not a Uper.
Oh yeah, excuse me.
Not a Uper. No. Not that there's anything wrong with being a Uper, but Troll.
Not that there is.
Grew up beneath the bridge, kind of in that Mackinac City area. So
that's beautiful, man. I think we have some family that has a place in Harbor Springs.
Okay.
And that kind of stretch from Traverse City to up that way that's the west side of the...
Yeah, Traverse City's on the west side, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah, it's too bad, like, from around here, it's tough to get to. It's, 6, 7, 8 hours, then you got a time change, and it's...
Yeah.
The UP's beautiful, but it's a long way.
I was going to say that you got that tunnel of trees coming down if you wanted to take the scenic route.
Yep.
Which is, I suppose any time of year, but especially in the autumn, if you're going that way,
yeah, awesome drive.
Beautiful, yeah, that's awesome. And you had mentioned off air that your dad had been with P&G for a long time as an engineer.
Yeah, born, really right out of college. So he put in 30 plus years there, loved it, and we're just working on a lot of different projects. It was kind of well diverse, and it built a great future for him. He put in a lot of hours, but really it was awesome to kind of see him grow and then give us a chance to succeed. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you don't see that much anymore. So your dad was 30 some years. My dad was 45 years.
And, I have now more jobs than birthdays, right? That type of thing. And it seems to be kind of the increasing story as maybe that generation is more iterative in their approach to life and to work and that type of stuff, figuring out what works for them and what they want.
Yeah. And I think industry, too, is a little bit different. In the paper industry, you do see, just because they have so many things going on, and I think, at least in the case of my dad and P&G, they really tried. You see a lot of lifers in there, so a lot of opportunity for growth, and guys see the need, and it gives them a great opportunity. A lot of them retire early, so it works out great. So
I remember and you hardly see it these days, but pension, bennies, all that kind of stuff. So I am one of 3 children, and I remember my parents told me that all 3 pregnancies were covered 100%. By it was just a really good insurance at the time, but you don't see that, and so I think that could be one thing as far as the younger generations want to align their work more with purpose rather than job security, and then there's also an increasing lack of job security in one sense as far as if you look at it from the perspective of a pension or 401k or benefits or all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of an interesting mix. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, how it turns out. But
that is.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So you've been in banking though, not the paper world.
No.
And that's actually funny enough. Both of our dads were in the paper industry, which
Absolutely.
is in this area. It's one of the main industries. So, but talk to me, man, a bit about I guess your journey. Did you always kind of have were you always money-minded? Were you always people-minded? Did you see kind of banking as a path? Or take us on that journey maybe from high school, college, to how you got to where you are today.
I guess so in high school, everyone always asked what I wanted to do. And you kind of go business, I want to be an attorney, those types of things. It always settled on I just wanted to wear a suit. Oddly enough, I'm wearing a suit today. And
it looks darn good.
Yeah. I try to match. I've seen you on some photos. I got to make sure I step my game up. But really, I didn't have anything in mind until starting to get to college, and I was business would be interesting. So I kind of went down a psychology business route a little bit. Yeah. And oddly enough, banking wasn't really even on the radar. I started out my career, actually started as a financial rep as an intern at around 18, 19 years old.
Cool.
So,
with who?
Northwestern Mutual.
Oh, yeah. Great company.
So started as an intern, and that
Great
really,
training.
And that's kind of what I think started off my whole career. So, I've always kind of been a little bit talkative and outgoing with people, especially in high school, but I didn't really know where that was going to lead me. So Northwestern Mutual came up. I think I started working, and my dad's like, hey, you have to put money into a Roth IRA, and that kind of sparked the conversation of the intern side. And by 19, I was meeting with professionals, business owners, people that could be my parents, talking about finances and their future. Really awkward sometimes and uncomfortable situations.
People that maybe knew more about finance than you did.
100%. Yeah, and a lot of them were just gracious enough to let some kid inside and talk to them about life insurance and those types of things. And sometimes it worked out, and they're like, hey, actually this kind of makes sense. Yeah. And I was probably terrible at it, really, and just fumbling through my words and stuff. But ended up doing that for all through college, and then about 6 months or so into a full-time role. At that time, I ended up having a kid, and getting married first, and then having a kid, and it was kind of okay, well, I got to figure something out, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to do that. So turned that into becoming a full-time financial advisor with a couple other financial institutions, which was challenging during kind of the recessionary time period. But I just knew I wanted to talk to people. So I went through that route, learned a lot, probably the same. I was probably 22, 23, 24, talking to people about their retirement, and I was just right out of college. But what I really learned, you had mentioned the training with Northwestern Mutual, I learned how to talk to people and just genuinely have a conversation and learn more about them. So so went through that, and then actually through some networking and things like that, I ended up getting an opportunity to go into manufacturing for about 5 years, and that kind of tweaked my entrepreneurial focus. It's a bump in the table here, I apologize.
Settle down.
Settle down. This is the coffee. I'm starting to get all juiced up. But yeah, so that was interesting because I always kind of that entrepreneurial chip and just wanted to see what I was made of.
Yeah.
And that was probably like getting a master's degree in management, of what not to do, what I'm made of, those types of things. And so did that and had some decent success and some decent failures out of that.
Yeah.
And really wanted to get back into, I found a passion for kind of personnel and organizational development, and had an opportunity to get back into banking, which I really realized I liked. I liked the industry. I liked kind of the opportunities to meet a lot of diverse people and things like that.
Yeah.
And it worked out great. I think they took a gamble on me a little bit because I had an interesting background, and I've been there for about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
Yeah, man, so many good things. Well, first of all, what you did mention is your association with the Ryan Hatch.
Yes. Yes, it pays to know people once in a while. So, yeah, Ryan's a good buddy. Went to high school with him.
Yeah.
We talked to him. He's one of the best big thinkers I know. Great energy. So, yeah, plug for Ryan Hatch for sure.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to episode 1, and Ryan tells a story, an unfortunate story, an event on the soccer team, and it just so happens that Allyn was there. He can confirm. They can confirm the details of the story. So
yeah, and it, like I said, I felt bad for him, but I had no idea it had such a lasting impact because I'm pretty sure we were down like 5-0, so it really didn't matter. But yeah, good dude.
Yeah, and so, but just tracing your story, like I think there's so many things. I mean, so much that you gleaned, you got in a sense paid to learn, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things. Like I remember, growing up, we were part of a youth group, and like if we went on like some kind of like youth conference or a trip or something like that, like we had to. My parents made us like raise our own money.
Yep.
They wouldn't always split the bill, and oftentimes how we would do that was like walk around the neighborhood and sell candy bars or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just knocking on every single door and coming back like, well, did you go to this block? No. All right, go to that block. Did you go to this one? No. All right, whatever it was, or even for school stuff. And I think that's just you don't realize at the time, and no one loves doing it.
No way.
But it develops in you the ability just to talk to people, introduce yourself, be confident, clear in what you have to offer. That what you have to offer is actually supporting something bigger than just a candy bar, right? Mm-hmm. It's really the development of this person and the next generation. It's kind of crazy when you kind of break down those concepts. You're not thinking about the time. I'm sure my parents were probably not thinking about that at the time. They're just like, we're not paying $100 for this conference,
Right.
Go sell some candy bars. But same thing for you, man, at Northwestern Mutual. And they do have a really good training program. Mm-hmm. I have a family member that's a very successful advisor with Northwestern. But then even like you mentioned too, with in your stint in manufacturing, how that was like an MBA in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a book by a guy named, I think it's Josh Kaufman, called The Personal MBA.
Okay.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
But it seems like in our day and age, not that MBAs don't have any value, but it seems like they're more so valuable, like the better name that you can get on that paper, like Harvard, or whatever it might be. And I think sometimes the best MBA that you can get is just getting the experience, being there, right? Learning how things actually work, not just the theory of things, but like you're in it and you're learning all across the board.
Yeah, I'd say, to kind of piggyback on that a little bit is just having an idea.
Yeah.
So often, and you see it in education now, people are like, well, I'm going to go get a degree. Like, well, in what? Well, I'm just going to go get a degree and figure it out. And I think it's tough, when you're 18, 19 to figure that out. I mean, I was in the same boat. Like, I'm just going to go get a degree and figure it out. And yeah, it works, but they always tell you you're going to work in, 5 different industries and it's a different path.
Yeah.
I think for that MBA side, really you need to focus on, I have a general idea of what I want to do, and then maybe you get more out of it. But if you're just going to get it, it's tough to apply it, the education versus practicality,
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of funny because that's how I joked before that, I've had more jobs than birthdays, and But I kind of actually liken that to my own personal MBA. So I read Josh's book, which is helpful, and then just when I look at all my experiences put together and what I know now about different industries, different ways to relate to people, different ways to position things, I look at that as like a competitive advantage for myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Not that I would say, hey, everyone should try to go work as many different jobs as possible. But how things played out for me in that, and just that, like you said, that real world experience, understanding, taking things from an idea or a concept to how it actually works out with flesh and blood.
Yeah.
So cool, man. So, and then it makes sense, with banking too. I mean, great way to be able to serve people, to help them, and kind of makes sense, like why you would end up there, and what a huge thing for the folks at Peshtigo National to say, hey man, we want to make an investment in Allyn.
Yeah, it was really a blessing. Truthfully, I said, I think they did take a little bit of a gamble on me. I'm a little bit of an unknown, so financial services and then manufacturing and then HR, it's kind of interesting. But I think for me, having that a little bit of a diverse background, helps me relate to a couple people.
And I have in the area specifically.
Yeah. And I do have that passion for kind of the development side, so I've seen how it works in different industries, which I can apply some different techniques to it. At Peshtigo National, we're a little bit kind of run like a smaller business, in terms of our structure and how we do things, so it's not so much bureaucracy and red tape that we have to go through. So I think my past in small business has helped. A little bit of a marketing. I get to do a lot of different things, but it's exciting.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, super exciting. So what keeps you waking up every morning and giving your life to this kind of work? Like, what is that, more than just, helping people or whatever it might be? Like, what's that greater why? I know that you've read Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and that's kind of what I have in mind here. It's what's that purpose, what's that pulse within you that's driving you to continue to do what you're doing, long-term, big picture?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was thinking about this kind of on the drive over a little bit, and I always wanted to make every interaction with somebody when I was growing up, like, have them leave with a smile. Make sure it was like a positive, encouraging conversation or whatever. And it's shifted a little bit now as I look back on growing up, and now I just want to make a positive impact. My parents, and we'll probably get into influences going on, but always doing my best. It didn't matter what you were doing. If you committed to doing it, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to everybody involved to do your best. And I think for me, I kind of carry that with me. And so you wake up, I just want to make a positive impact. Whatever opportunity comes along, I'm going to do it and try and do it positively, I guess.
Yeah, whoever walks into the bank, whoever, is on the other end of that phone, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing, a little bit at the heart of this podcast too, which is like, who knows who's going to hear your story, and it's going to change the course of their life, right? And that's amazing. It's like, I think sometimes in our lives, like, we don't realize how powerful our words are, for good or for ill, right? For good or for ill. But like, when we just encourage somebody one day, we make that positive impact. Like, we might not think much of it, but that it could mean everything for that person. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's one of just the neatest things in life is we might not ever realize or see or taste of the fruit of our labors, but we know that there's something real happening there. We know that it's worth it. It's worth the work of planting and watering, that's cool, man. That's awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
All right, man, so let's get into it. You are the Senior Vice President for Peshtigo National Bank, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Been rocking and rolling for 4 years there, and apparently they're getting some ROI. The risk was worth it, right?
I hope so, yeah. Jury's still probably out, but yeah.
Maybe after this podcast, they'll be like, hey, you know what? He was right. We shouldn't have taken a risk.
We'll have to edit this out a little bit, maybe.
But you don't get to a position of leadership like that by doing everything wrong, right? So I'd love to hear, man, and I'm sure our listeners will love to hear, like, as you're looking back over the course of your career to date, it's not done yet, right? You got a lot of chapters, right, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But what are some things that you've done really, really right? A few things that, like, you're like, hey, man, like, Had I not done this, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah, I would say right off the bat, I have probably accepted every project given to me. And I think this is a little bit of a different, probably like 50-50 mix if you were to maybe survey people. You see some people that say, no, you have to be really assertive and say no, and really focus on what you're good at. And then like Richard Branson says, like, say yes and figure it out. I think for me, I really focused on, if someone's willing to ask me to do something, whether or not I think I can do it, I'll figure out a way to try and do it. And for me, that's given me a lot of opportunities to get into things that I never had any background in or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that, and I probably didn't do all of them as well as I could have, but you learn along the way, and it preps you for other opportunities or to grow in that area. And that's not just even at the bank, that's, in manufacturing. I mean, manufacturing in general, I just dove right in. I had the opportunity, knew nothing about the industry I was getting into. I just knew that hard work and determination will at least get me somewhere, and I can learn along the way.
Yeah.
So that was big.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. It's and I agree. Like, I've heard different takes on that. Like, hey, you just say no to most things, right?
Yeah.
A guy that I really appreciate that gives me a swift kick in the teeth when I need it is a guy named Grant Cardone. Are you familiar?
Heard the name, but I haven't read it. He's wrote a, what is that, 10X rule? Or?
Yep, wrote the 10X rule. I recommend it. He has, I think, like 1.5, 1.8 billion assets under management, real estate guy, so commercial. So he's doing well, right? Mm-hmm. But he came from nothing, which is really, really cool. And I love his perspective on taking total ownership. But he says the same thing that Richard Branson says is say yes and figure it out. Yeah. Say yes and figure out how you're going to do it, which is challenging, right? Because it's kind of like you want to be efficient and maybe you want to rock the 80-20 rule. What should you be saying no to? Mm-hmm. And it actually seems like it's I think Grant's point there, and he goes by Uncle G.
All right.
The uncle you never had, Uncle G. If you're listening to this, which I know you are, because I know that you would start with what not to do. Let's get you on the show, man. But it has to do with mindset. And do you have a scarcity mindset? Like, you only have so much time, and like you only can do so much in the day, and like and everyone's asking and wanting to take. Or do you have an abundance mindset where you're looking how I can give, and I'm making time for these things, and I will make time and I'll figure it out because, man, I've got room for everything, right? And there are ditches on both sides of the road if we're not careful. Mm-hmm. But I think most of us probably, I'm going to gamble and say maybe a lot of us wrestle with a scarcity mindset where we feel like, hey, everything's limited, time's limited, and I only can do so much, and I need time for me. Rather than saying, well, how can I take on more? How can I make it yes? And realizing that maybe when we do that, maybe we become more efficient in the things that we're doing. Maybe we become more productive. Maybe we start making better use of the time because of how we're utilizing it, and because we're saying yes to so many things. Thoughts on that?
And I think there's a fine line. I mean, this is all from my perspective, so I mean, it's just how I've lived. But
there's no fine line.
But it's for me, and we can get into this on the failure side too. But like for me, you diving in to make it work. I probably made way too many sacrifices on my personal life to try and get to there. So I mean, for me to dive in, you still have to have a good balance of margin so that you can focus on the priorities in your life. But yeah, in terms of just, it gave me opportunities, and then I guess to piggyback on what I did right there is once I got those opportunities, I did everything I could to learn about what I was doing. It wasn't just like feeling it out, we kind of talked off air a little bit. I love podcasts, in wide variety from American history to fintechs to, just general business knowledge, those types of things. That kind of gives me a diverse background in terms of things you can kind of maybe take some nuggets of information or those types of things. Yeah. So, you just kind of build up that and dive in. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a really good mindset, and I think it's challenging to me, and hopefully it's challenging to some folks out there, and they say like, hey man, I need to work on that.
Yeah. I should have started that a lot sooner. just in reading too. I was never big into reading. Now I have a 45-minute drive to work every day, so my version of reading is Audible. So when people's like, "What book did you just read?" I'm like, "Well, I kind of read it, but I more or less listened." That's really helped too. Just give you ideas. And I'm a firm believer that if you're not learning something new or growing, you're going to get passed up, and you're not doing anybody any favors, including yourself, if you're not trying to kind of figure some new stuff out. So
yeah, I think in so many areas in life we've bought into this myth of like this middle ground, this myth of neutrality, where it's like, well, I'm not growing, but I'm not dying, right? I'm just here. Oh, sorry. Neutrality is a myth. There is no middle ground. There's no neutrality. You're either growing or you're actually dying, right? And I think if you take that perspective and saying, if I'm not growing, then I'm regressing. I'm reversing in my life if I'm not actually pressing forward. So you don't just stay, right? That's an interesting thing. I love that. Making use of the time that you have. That's one of the cool things about technology too is you get a book in your car, man. You get these mentors, advisors that are in life maybe where you want to be, and you can learn from them and drink in what they're taking, and that's awesome. Yeah, man, that's so cool. Love it.
All right, I want to know who's next. Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
So we had some lovely ladies behind us that were chatting up a storm, and so we decided to give them some space. We relocated, but it turns out we got the better end of the deal, because we were sitting on some stools that were like, basically I couldn't feel my knees. And now these are like cushioned. Like, man, I'm like, this is royalty.
Yeah,
right
I think the rest of the conversation is going to be a little bit more relaxed. And now we're overlooking kind of the snow flurries of De Pere, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And we're also staring at the magnificent, dashingly handsome Matthew Key. Right?
Yeah, I just met him personally, so it's awesome. It's always, it's interesting to sit in a public place and then people just walking by and you know people, so appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, which is really fun. Yeah, I was able to connect off air. That's actually what I love about this. There's I'm getting more and more stories of folks that are connecting because of the podcast, and that just jazzes me up. So if you guys are listening to this, don't be shy. There's contact information in the show notes for all these folks. If it's personal, if you just want to learn from them, if you want to buy them a cup of coffee, if you want to do business with them, like, this is all the right place to do that type of thing, which is really, really cool. So don't be shy. If you, like we were just talking about, if you're not growing, you're dying, and part of that is your network. Growing your network and cultivating it, building it, relationships. It's not taking advantage of people. It's not using them. It's building relationships and see how you can give, how you can serve. Man, it's just cool. So if you come in with that perspective and you're all in it together, give more than you take, it's usually a win-win for everybody across the board. So
perfect.
Cool. All right, man. So you are a human being. So I'm gonna roll the dice and assume that you probably have a few failures in life. Didn't do everything right. So as you look back, from date to the, over the course of your career, what's one, two, no more than three things that kind of rise to the top above all else? Of like, man, if I could have this one back, I would.
Yeah, I think for me, if I try and simplify this, because I could go on for a long time. Early on, and even today, it's something I struggle with, is ego. Really leading and maybe focusing my perspective more on myself versus why I'm really doing it. Early on in my career, it was, I'm going to take this thing on and I'm going to crush it and I'm going to succeed on my own, and just super ego-driven, And now looking back, it's like having conversations like this and meeting new people. If you made it on your own, I guess good for you, but think of what you could have done along the way if you had other people, and I think for me, early on in my career, I was doing things for the wrong reasons, trying to, reach that pinnacle of success, whatever that was in my mind, and just not letting anything stand in front of me to do that, but I really wasn't doing it for the right reasons, And kind of early in my management or managerial career, I probably led with ego too. I'm the boss, I'm in power, so that's why you have to do these things, and I'm going to exert my authority. And coming from like a 25-year-old kid, that doesn't go well no matter what. But even if you're 45, 50, just to kind of use that power trip, you're not getting what needs to be done out of those interactions.
Yeah, but you were wearing a suit.
Yeah. So. Speaking of running into people,
Sorry.
Tommy, how you doing, man?
How you doing? Awesome.
You're live.
Awesome.
You were live.
Yeah,
Live. I'm sorry.
Nice to meet you. Man.
Nice to meet you.
No, don't apologize.
Absolutely.
This
So
is
this
good.
is Tom Schmidt.
Yeah.
Tom Schmidt's M3 Insurance.
Awesome.
One of our
Very cool.
partners. So a little plug for M3.
Look at that.
But good dude. Yeah.
You're on the What Not to Do podcast. So
What not to do.
I
get
give
a lot of ideas.
entrepreneurs, leaders, and public figures a platform to share their failures.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
Allyn's sharing his failures help a couple others for success, which is awesome. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk to you. Good to meet you.
yeah,
talk to you
likewise. Thanks for
later.
dropping in, man. That's fun. So how would you talk about that? How would you talk about that in a way, saying don't do this? With having an ego, or having the wrong motives, or making it more about yourself. Like, how would you say it in like a don't do this way? If you're telling someone else don't do this, how would you say that?
For me, it really took a perspective shift of why you're doing it. And for me, I realize I'm gonna try and never be an expert. I think just a continuous learning attitude. Even if I do reach a great success somewhere, still kind of taking that perspective of I have a lot to learn and I can learn from anybody. Not just coming in like, well, I'm the boss, so this is how we're going to do things. Getting other people's perspectives is something that, because I'm kind of bullheaded once in a while, you dive in, you have a focused mindset of it, but getting perspective from other people, I think is key, and just asking a lot of questions. I think a lot of people are like, well, if I have to ask questions, I'm not the expert, I'm not in charge, and I think that's the exact opposite. I think people that ask the best questions are the ones that are going to succeed and are actually better leaders because they see the value in teamwork and collaboration. So
That's interesting. So there's a few things there, but so do you think is it the ego that kind of blinds you from seeing your need to ask for help or ask questions, or your ego from kind of keeping you seem like you're just trying to go it alone and bulldoze through this thing?
Yeah.
Or how it? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think for me it was, of I can do this, I'm an independent person, I can reach success, I'm going to be, this person early on in my career. Some say it's determination, but I think I probably took it too far in terms of that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, the way that I'm thinking about it is don't let your ego blind you.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's easy to stroke the ego. We all love that, right? We all want to do that. And I loved what you said earlier about not wanting to go it alone. There for sure there's focus and discipline and determination that it takes to be successful, to accomplish, to bring our dreams to reality, whatever plan we're executing. But man, it's the rare person, if ever, that does that by themselves, right? If you're actually honest and you just step back and you say, hey, who was all involved in my success here? Oh, guess what? It was more than just me, right? And that's what you're saying. What's the quote? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go by
together
with others. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So don't let your ego blind you. What else, man?
Everything's kind of rooted ego, but I think for me, early on in my career, I maybe had a couple successes, and I was probably not open to getting maybe mentorship, or even just opening up to other people. I was very self-sufficient, independent, and I think that hurt too. I wasn't a continual learner, so it's I'm here because of my past, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. When in reality, I probably could have maybe not bulldoze my way through some situations by learning from other people or connecting with people to say, hey, what's your feedback? What's your input? What could I do to better myself or better the situation?
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. Yeah, I guess how would you say that don't isolate yourself. It's kind of interesting because like there's a way in which like we're with people every day, and yet we can live very isolated lives. Very what's the word I'm looking for? Not just isolated, but insulated, right? Like in the way that, like, you'd keep heat out of a building or keep it in, or the insulation in walls. It's kind of interesting how we can set up our lives that way to where we can be with people, but we never feel the light, we never get the heat coming from them. We don't let it in, but we block it in that sense,
Yeah, I think for me, I'm still working on this, but I really wasn't a good listener early in my career, and I think even when people would give me some advice, like, oh, maybe you should look at, no, I'm on the path, I can do this, and it's like, maybe I should have listened.
Suit, baby. It's the suit.
I should have heeded some of that advice from a lot of different perspectives. I think for me, what would I do differently? I probably would have involved other people in other perspectives earlier on. Because I think it's just part of that learning thing. It's surround yourself with not just like-minded people, but in similar values, but really that have different perspectives. Different avenues of their careers or backgrounds, because it at least will give you kind of a wide range of view on different things.
Yeah.
And that's tough. I'm still working on that. I'm still bullheaded and go after it, a thought process, but it's just an ongoing process,
Yeah, and even, because it's like, I don't know if we touched on this earlier, but as the senior vice president, one of your major functions and responsibilities is HR. It's developing the human capital in the organization.
Yeah.
Right. And so, obviously one of the main things there is understanding the strengths of people, right? Making sure that they're being utilized, that they're in the right seat, right?
Yeah.
I love the book Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yep.
Right people on the bus in the right seat type of thing. And that's a simplified way of talking about what you do. It's more than that, but that's an important thing, and as a leader of any, even as a family guy, leaders of family or any kind of group of people, or even yourself, to ignore the human capital component of it, and assume that others don't have anything, and not that necessarily you consciously even think that, but if we function in a way that kind of makes it look like we don't think that other people have anything valuable to add or contribute, we're just missing maybe huge opportunities, really.
Absolutely, yeah. And we have a couple, part of our leadership team, we have 3 or 4 other senior vice presidents in different departments or categories. But if something comes across my desk, the first thing I'm asking is, tell me more about the situation. Because I have some ideas on what may or may not work, but that person that's coming to me is in a certain circumstance or situation, and we got to figure out how they got there, what works, what doesn't. Really get the specifics on how we move forward. But my main role is human capital development. But I probably ask more questions or try to to other people about like, well, what do you see? What am I missing? Because you just can't be everywhere all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And you mentioned too, a minute ago, like don't stop listening. Like listening is really important. And sometimes even when we think we're good listeners, we realize how much we have to grow in our listening ability. Or we might think that, hey, if I just shut up and don't say anything, that makes me a good listener. And then we're sitting here formulating our own thoughts of what we want to say, and it has nothing to do with what the other person just said,
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens. It's good to get feedback on that kind of stuff and say like, hey, like, do you feel like I'm hearing what you have to say? Do you feel like I'm asking, your thoughts on things and what you can contribute? And when you give people that kind of sense of ownership, and they brighten up. They sit up a little bit straighter. It's cool.
Yeah, if you ask my wife on my listening ability, it's definitely like a C average. So hopefully I'm working on that. So if she's listening to this, she's probably disagreeing with some of the stuff I have to say. But it's something I work on. I really do.
Yeah.
But something I found, and I'm trying this relatively recently, is kind of just asking some clarifying questions with people. It's like, am I hearing this correctly? Because sometimes even myself, I don't come across as communicative as I want to be, and it's like my message isn't quite being heard, and I feel like sometimes that's vice versa. So if I can ask to kind of clarify, like, okay, is this what you're meaning to say, or am I understanding this correctly? I think that always helps get to a better goal too, because then you're on the same path, you know.
Yeah, you're totally on the same page. There's a similar dynamic in reading books. Someone might. The dynamic is this. Whenever you read a book, we want to really understand what the author is saying before we decide whether or not we agree with it. And it seems like oftentimes in life we read a book and we just say, I disagree. But maybe it is that we actually really understood what the author is saying, but maybe we didn't. And I think one of the first rules of charity is that if you're going to debate somebody or differ with somebody and give your reasons for why, you have to first understand what they're trying to say in a way that they would say, yep, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And that's exactly what you're saying as far as like affirming, what they said and communicating back to them that you understood what they said in a way that they said, yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. Great. And then you can go from there. You could differ, or you could agree, or you can go from there. But without knowing that you're on the same page with folks, I mean, it makes communication really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You probably heard it said, you've got two ears, one mouth, right? Listen twice as much as you speak.
Absolutely, yeah. It's hard, especially for me, but it's an ongoing process, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Ongoing for all of us.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, so we're bumping to some smooth jazz here, which is just fantastic, keeping us cool.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's a nice little vibe.
Yeah, thanks to the Exchange for fueling our conversation today. If you guys are in the area, or if you come into the area, west of here, by St. Norbert College, it's a great place. Great coffee, great vibe. Highly recommend hanging out here. So
absolutely, yeah.
All right, man. So life is, very much like a garden. I love the picture of, the idea of a rose and how the promise of that rose was always wrapped up in the seed, right? And so you plant that seed expecting the rose, right? And how one of the differentiators in whether or not you actually get the end result is the environment. You need sun, you need rain, and you need protection. You need those things in proportionate measures. If the seed falls on the blacktop, not going anywhere, you're not getting your rose. Doesn't matter how much potential is wrapped up in that seed, you're not getting it if it's on the blacktop. If it gets, hacked down by the lawnmower, doesn't matter how much potential it's done. You kind of get where I'm going with that. Same thing with sun and rain, and I think human life is like that. And you actually probably see that those dimensions in your line of work of cultivating the human capital, right? And developing that. So from a macro perspective, kind of zooming out in our lives, there are so many people, so many things that shape us, influence us, all that kind of stuff. I'm curious for you, in your environment and the people that you've come across in life, could be directly or could be indirectly through like books and other things like that. Who's someone that kind of comes to the top of Allyn's mind as someone super impactful and formational in your success, to such an extent that if you took them out of the equation, you wouldn't be where you are and who you are today? Who's that for you?
I think just to start off, there's always, in my life, there's been mentors that have come and gone.
Yeah.
More situational or time frame wise, where they make an impact for a couple of years, whether it was a coach or a teacher, and then they're gone for whatever reason, just life. But I would say that the people that have been there the most consistently certainly are my parents. Something we didn't talk about, I'm actually adopted. So
cool.
I think as of yesterday, yesterday was the pickup date, 30 some odd years ago for my parents to pick me up from foster care. So
that's awesome.
My mom sent me a cool text like, hey, 36 years ago, we picked you up. So, so my history, obviously, or my future would have been drastically different if that wasn't the case for my parents.
Yeah. How old were you?
When they picked me up, I was probably 3 months old.
Oh, so you have no memory?
No. So, but I mean, just fantastic. Truly a blessing to be brought into that family.
Wow.
And we can get into the whole nature versus nurture debate, forever. But I was brought up in a great home that had strong values, a strong faith, and for me that really had challenges because I'm not wired the same as they are.
Yeah.
But I had a great models in my life of working hard, doing things the right way as much as you can, and being generous.
Yeah.
So they really laid the foundation for me for that.
That's so cool.
And a level of contentment.
Yeah.
They not materialistic. I mean, great savers, but great generous givers as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is something I'm learning to do. But it was never, hey, we're going to get the brand new boat, or they were just good, down-to-earth people that really gave me a foundation of how to live, no matter what I did.
Yeah.
And really doing my best. That was, hey, if you're going to do this, we talked about a little bit before, if you're going to invest some time into whatever activity, you're going to do the best you can. Doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but you're certainly going to give it your all.
Yeah.
And so then awesome. More recent, my wife.
Yeah.
She...
Did she pay you to say that?
No. I did tell her, I'm like, hey, if this question comes up, though, just be ready. It's truth, though. She has she keeps me grounded. And she gives me tremendous perspective. I bounce a lot of things off of her, and just her background, the experiences. She's got an incredible story, and she has a different way of looking at things, and they're usually right, which really helps me kind of shift my perspective and focus. But she's incredibly supportive, and truly, without her, I would be lost in pretty much everything. So
just to be clear, you said that your wife is usually right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to be clear.
And in the rare case, I think we've been married.
This is recorded,
Yes,
She's going to play this back.
Well, she knows I can't lie. We've been married 13 years, going on 14. In the rare case I have been right, she's still usually right. So.
That's awesome, man. Yes, cool. It's going back to your parents, inescapable.
Yeah,
the studies are out there, right? Really challenging for kids growing up in a broken home, kids growing up in foster systems, all that kind of stuff. And it emphasizes the beauty of adoption in one way in which you can really give yourself to help equip someone else for success. Like at the heart of this podcast, and your parents achieved that through adopting you, right?
Yeah.
Someone that was in the foster system that said, we're giving this guy a chance, right? And we're going to raise him well, we're going to raise him right, and it's going to be a glorious thing. And look at you today, man, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so
cool. And they did a great job of, I always knew I was adopted, but I never felt, I felt just as much, as one of their kids. So,
yeah, for sure. And then obviously this came out in previous episodes, but picking your spouse is really, really important. In a sense, if you want to think it through through a business paradigm, it's like a business partner, right? And that can really determine the course of the business, the profitability of the business. Speaking proverbially, and so that's awesome, man. It's good to have a good, wise spouse that you can lean on, look to for advice, and you can trust their wisdom, their take on things. Doesn't mean that you would always agree on the same thing, or even that you'd always take the advice, but someone you want to go to them, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're there for you, and it's cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, super supportive. She's amazing. She's my rock, and I'm blessed.
Awesome. What's her name?
Christy.
Christy?
Yep.
Awesome. Christy, you're great. Thanks for putting up with this guy. Awesome. And she might say, thank you for putting up with her, right?
It's very easy. It's very easy to put up with her.
Cool, man. So I'm not looking for the best, but I am looking for the worst advice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot floating around these days. In the age of technology has leveled the playing field, and it also has leveled the playing field when it comes to giving advice. Mm-hmm. So anyone with 5 fingers or even one, I guess, can type out what they're thinking and what they think that you should do. I'm curious though, in that whole realm of things, or maybe sometime along your journey, like what's some of the worst advice that you've ever been given, or that you hear float around these days?
Yeah, I think in my own personal life, at some point I was given the advice to really exert my authority. And maybe I probably took that too far and took it too literal, but to kind of show that, hey, if you are in charge, you need to make sure that those people know it. And I really don't think that's the case. I really think that if you are put in a leadership position, whether you want to or not, the end goal is to have people succeed. So your job is to get the best out of them, not for them to know that, like, hey, you have this title and you're in charge. I think that's foolish. They already know, obviously you are, so I don't think you need to show that with being authoritative or extremely demanding and condescending. I think there's better ways to go about that. Certainly you need to be assertive, but for me, I've heard that a couple times and actually probably took it to heart early on in my career of, you know what, there are better ways to lead people. And I think if you're understanding and humble about that, with knowing that you're going to screw up, or at least if you're open and honest and have that communication with people, that's the opposite way you want to go,
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
And it seems to me, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, if you're always exerting your authority, or in a sense flexing your muscles, it seems like you maybe are wrestling with more insecurities or like doubts inside, to where like you feel like you have to project yourself in this way in order to get the respect that you need, rather than getting the respect by your results. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I see a lot of people that and across my career of, like, they didn't want to see other people on their team succeed, and I feel like that is awesome. Yeah. Like, really, if you have somebody on your team, no matter what industry, wherever you are, if you have somebody, even that you're managing, that is reaching great successes, like, ride that thing as long as you can go. I think that's awesome, because you'll have a chance to help them. Maybe you can use some of those resources to help other people do it. But in general, it's awesome to see people succeed, especially if they're on your team. Yeah. And it's not a reflection on them being great and you not being a leader. I mean, if you're a great leader, they should succeed, and everybody wins,
Yeah. Imagine being a parent and saying, like, having let's say your son's, playing football and he scores a touchdown, and you never score a touchdown when you play football. So it's like, hey, buddy, you talk to the coach and be like, hey, I think we need to bench my son or pull him off the team. It's like, that's just ludicrous. Like, who wouldn't want their kid to go further faster than they can? And I think when you're leading people in a business environment, you should want the same. Yeah. But yeah, so maybe there is that underlying insecurity where it's like, well, or going maybe back to that, like, scarcity abundance mindset, right? If you're leading folks and someone on your team is killing it, oh shoot, is my job up for grabs now? Like, are they gonna replace me, and I've got a family to feed? And rather than saying, like, hey, this is awesome, I want to help them to go even further, right?
Yeah. And you have to be in the right organization for that. I mean, there has to be the trust with whoever is above you. But I think if you're in the right organization, people are succeeding and you're in charge of those people, it's a reflection on you that you're helping and you're cultivating a culture that promotes growth and openness. That's, like I said, everybody's a win in that column.
So, worst advice: exert your authority, flex your proverbial muscles that you don't really have.
Right. Yeah, don't follow that. I did. It doesn't go well.
It's all in the suit, baby. It's all in the suit. No, but seriously, when you lead by example, you are wielding real authority, and real results. You don't have to try to push. It's more of that pull, right? And that's what you're saying. And people get that. They sense that, and they see that when you're really about other people and helping them to go further, faster, understanding their strengths and abilities like we were talking about before, and really unleashing them then to do what they do well. That's cool, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a challenge. It's always a challenge. So,
and maybe that ties back in with ego too. Like, if you're exerting your authority, maybe it's all about you and your world, and you want everyone to be under your umbrella, rather than saying, like, hey, like, who are you? What are you good at? And I want to help you really succeed, right? Like you said before, I think you said something like, it all kind of comes back to ego, and maybe that's a
and leadership is never, it can't. I mean, you have to ditch that at the door, and it's tough, and I struggle with it every day, and you start thinking, you're the expert or whatever, but leadership truly is, the definition is about others, right? So
that's CrossFit saying.
Is it?
Ditch your ego at the door, or leave your ego at the door, something like that. Yeah, that's fun. Cool. All my CrossFitters out there. All right, man. So last but not least, it's rush hour in every major city in the world. Billions of people are listening to this episode with Allyn Emery of What Not to Do, right? And loving your story. And they look out their windows, and once you know it, they see a billboard. And it's Allyn's billboard. What message does the world see? What message do you want the world to see?
Oh, man. I would say help others succeed. And I don't, it's probably a cliche, but it's a billboard, so I only have a certain amount of space. I found that I get a true high out of helping others, especially career-wise, just either giving advice or maybe trying to open up different avenues or connecting people. I have passion for that, of just seeing other people succeed. And I think, again, going back to our first conversation of just being driven to succeed myself on my own, it's not really the way to go. I think you can reach fulfillment and success, however way you want to define that, by partnering with other people and helping them achieve things. And I think that's what I would do. Don't be so focused on your own growth, but lend a helping hand.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. We've talked in a few previous episodes about moving from success to significance. If you were to define it, success like a personal thing, and significance is when you start to reproduce that success in others. And it kind of goes back to that, like that father-son, parent-child dynamic. It's like you really want them to go further faster than you could, right? What parent doesn't want their child to have greater success than what they had? There's probably something wrong with you if you weren't wanting that. Yeah. But how about in all of life, right? How about whatever we're leading, our coworkers, the folks that we have the privilege of being able to manage and develop and cultivate, or whatever it might be. I love what you said, man. It's help them succeed, right? If you make your first line of business about helping others succeed, my guess is I'd put money on you're going to succeed. So would you say that in the same way?
Yeah, I think it's inherent. It's just going to come, And I think in my role in HR now, one of my favorite parts is when we get to promote somebody. You see some of their expectations, their goals, those things. Right. But it's cool. They deserve it, obviously, and they've probably worked really hard for it. It's just kind of a joy to see them grow. So
yeah, Allyn's buying. Let's go. Awesome, man. Well, hey, this is a blast. I've really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, me too, man.
I feel like we're friends, we're brothers, we're BFFs, which is cool. It's great. And that's one thing I love about this. It's like, man, there are 250,000 people in the Green Bay area. I don't know most of them, and this is a blast. So I hope our listeners have also really enjoyed the story, our time together, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too.
A few bonus questions for you. Give me the most, you could say the most impactful, or your favorite books, or really 3 books that you think people need to have on their bookshelf.
Yeah, so I'm not a history buff, but I'm really interested in history.
Yeah.
So one is actually The Search for God in Guinness.
Oh, cool.
I think it's only in actual hard copy, or it's not on Audible. I looked. It's a pretty thick book, but it's based on the history of the Guinness beer company.
Cool.
But there's generations and generations of things they did for people, which I think is really cool.
Who wrote that? Do you know?
I don't.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. It took me a while to read it. The first couple chapters are tough, but once you start getting into it, it's cool history.
Yeah.
And then again, like I said, I'm a kind of a big Audible guy. I do like Start With Why. Simon Sinek was a good one. The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. That one's kind of interesting, a little bit of a shorter read, but really focuses on just the culture that you want to cultivate within an organization. It's probably a good one.
And that was Daniel
Coyle, yeah, Coyle.
Cool. Awesome. So we will have those in the show notes. If you want to, if the titles just intrigue you, or you want to think a little bit more like Allyn, pick those up. That'd be awesome. And if you want to connect with Allyn, if you want to do business with Allyn, you want to take him out for coffee or just get to know him more, where can they find you?
Best way is LinkedIn. Yeah, okay. Just search Allyn Emery. I'm one of the few, I think, with the spelling of my name, so it comes up pretty quick. Nice. I'm always open for coffee, learn about what other people do, and maybe connect with other people. So
how you can make them successful, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll link to your LinkedIn in the show notes as well too, to make it easy for folks. Allyn.
Allyn.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, man. This has been so great. Thank you so much, man.
No, I appreciate
really loved having you on.
Yeah, me too, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Man, I had so much fun getting to know Allyn. Just such a great guy. And on a side note, like, I have the most fun doing what I do with these podcasts. I mean, I get to learn from just the coolest people that you may never have heard of otherwise. And then I get to take that conversation that I just have an absolute blast having and broker it to you and give it to you, and can distill these incredible lessons. So it's just amazing. I love what I do. I hope you guys are loving it. Getting really good feedback from the folks I'm sitting down with, like Allyn. So it's a great, and even listeners across the board. So it's a blast. We're having fun together. Let's not let's not forget that this is great. All right, so kind of nerdy, but anyway, let's recap here. First, Allyn said, "Don't let your ego blind you. Don't let your ego blind you." This is important because the ego blinds, or at least it can, and we have blind spots, and we need others to help us see that where we can't see it. So don't let your ego get to the place where it starts to just blur your vision and distort things, twist things. And we're all so susceptible to that. And it leads into the next thing he said, don't insulate yourself. So you could look at this in a couple different ways. It could be don't isolate yourself or don't insulate yourself. So the first, don't insulate yourself, meaning don't make yourself immune to outside perspectives coming in. And again, this helps to keep that ego in check. If we insulate ourselves, nothing from the outside gets in, just like you'd insulate to keep the cold air from getting in this time of year, or from the hot air getting in in the summer. So don't do that, but don't isolate yourself. And that's another thing, kind of a harmonious dimension here, not to insulate, but not to isolate. Isolate yourself, and you're full, like you have nobody, right? And who could you even hear from? And then you're completely going it alone. And that's something that we all have learned, hopefully by now in life, that it's not a good plan, not a good option. And this kind of leads us to the last point that Allyn said: don't stop listening. Don't stop listening. So don't let your ego blind you. Don't insulate yourself from others and their perspectives and their constructive criticisms, or even encouragement, because we all for sure need that. And don't stop listening. He had made the point to involve other people. Ask for their opinion, right? And initiate that conversation. Don't wait for it to come to you. So don't let your ego blind you. Don't insulate yourself or isolate. And don't stop listening. Well, I want to thank you for listening, because I love what I do, and it's so encouraging to me to know that you guys are enjoying it, loving it, applying this in your life, and hopefully going to see results in the long run, which is just phenomenal. If you've been helped by this, share it with someone else, share it with a friend. And one of the ways that you can do that is by giving the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you stream, assuming that you think the show deserves it, which would be great. I'm curious also who you would love to hear on the show, who I could sit down with and have a cup of coffee. Think about it this way: who is someone that you've always wanted to sit down with and have a cup of coffee and just get to know and ask about their life and their experience, even some of their failures? Whoever that person is, send them my way. Tag me, tag them, and maybe that person is you, right? And so totally cool. Let's get together. Let's do it. Let's help you tell the world what not to do, right? And together equip the world for success. If you're a company and you think you've got a relevant message, relevant solution that entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and aspiring entrepreneurs and public figures and leaders would be attuned to, would love to have, let's talk and see if your message, if your service or product would be really valuable, and if it would align and be a good fit for our community here. Well, It's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.